At the beginning of the story, we see a guy and a girl sitting in an embrace, kissing softly in bed. The girl asked the guy why he kissed her. There was a beautiful moon outside. Then the guy tells the girl that he wants her to forget everything. The guy also asks the girl if she hasn't used her power to change her appearance and not be tied to the past. Then we find out that the girl's name is Letitia Violet. The guy holds the girl's hands with his strong hands. Here we notice how beautiful this girl is. She has very beautiful eyes. They are like two purple diamonds. Letitia says that, ironically, a man who was bored with everything was attracted to her who had lost everything, while a guy with a bare torso towers over the girl and stares at her excitedly. The guy reminds her that her husband left her for another woman. The girl with pain and tears in her eyes asks him not to repeat it. The guy sees her tears and leans over her. The girl says she doesn't know how it happened with this man. After the guy leans over the girl, he starts kissing her passionately. The girl realizes that this is a man who has no need for anything, but apparently she is sure of something. We realize she's in too much pain. He holds her tight in his arms and she cries quietly. The girl says she likes the way he holds her tight. The story moves back in time. The main character is sitting at the table drinking her tea, while her husband suggests that she file for divorce. The girl is shocked by his words and says that it is not a funny joke for a wedding anniversary. The man begins to tell us that he has someone he really loves, and then we learn that his name is Astor Winchester. Apparently, his intentions are very serious. Astor tells the girl that his new love is very different from her. She's pure and innocent and not a calculating woman. The girl is incredibly outraged by such words from her husband. Immediately, she stood up from her seat and asked him, "How can he even talk about such things?" Astor, seeing how furious the girl is, asks her if she wants to use her family's name again. The girl says that of course she will use her family's name since they have invested a lot of money to get his business off the ground. Astor interrupts the girl and says that he has paid off all his debts. The girl is even more furious and says that it wasn't a good deed. She is surprised that he paid everything and doesn't understand what he is talking about. You can see from her face that she is really surprised by what she heard. Astor turns to Letitia and tells her not to pretend she doesn't understand. From his words, we understand that he has returned the full amount invested in his business, albeit a little late. The girl thinks about the fact that her husband has always been like this. He always downplayed his guilt as if it meant nothing. At the same time, Astor is drinking tea as if nothing happened. Letitia furious. She tells her husband that because her parents invested in his business, they lost everything. According to the girl, her father even went to extreme measures. She asks the Astor, how can he do this to them? We learn that in aristocratic society, it doesn't matter if you have no money, but it's another matter if you lose your honor. Letitia says that her father, who is the head of the Violette family, went bankrupt when he could not repay the money he invested in time. Her father took full responsibility and committed suicide because he couldn't pay his debts. Her father invested in the Astor business for one reason and one reason only, because he was the husband of his only and much-loved daughter. He saw how happy his daughter was and helped them build a future. Letitia asks her husband if he wants to remarry her. He is puzzled, asking who she is talking about. Letitia asks if he thought she didn't know about everything. Letitia says that if it weren't for this girl, he wouldn't be talking about divorce. The guy interrupts the girl and says he's had enough of the scandal. He says he doesn't have time to argue with his wife. He asks Letitia why they shouldn't discuss monetary compensation. The girl yelled at the guy and says that stop talking about money. She does not understand the point of compensation because it will not bring back her father. The girl even begins to get tears in her eyes talking about all this. The girl thought she was going to reveal her husband's meanness to everyone, and what a petty man he is. The guy got angry and lost control of himself and hit the girl. Letitia says it's all his resentment, but the guy says it's all in the past. He adds that even his late father-in-law would be shocked to see the girl in such a state. Letitia's husband says he's sick of her antics. The girl is shocked by these words. He says no one will treat her like a hostess if she gets so emotional. He towered over her and says that their marriage began to choke him and that he had the feeling that from day to day he was being hounded by the debt collector. He adds that he was infuriated by that pitiful face. Letizia heard these words and began to sob. While her husband was hitting her with words about how worthless she was, he says he felt like the last scoundrel in the world. Aster took off his wedding ring and put it on the table while he asked the girl for a divorce. He tells the girl that he also wants to be happy, to have a normal family and a woman he loves. As he leaves, as if he wants to say something else, the girl stops him and asks him what he wants to say. After a second of silence, he says that he also wants a child. The girl is shocked by these words. Aster says that he wants his child to be like him, but Letitia can't have children. She asks herself how he can talk about children, since the reason she can't have children is that he pushed the girl down the stairs in a fit of anger when she was very young. Letitia recalls the situation when her husband pushed the girl down the stairs. She was sitting on the bed, and he is on his knees begging the girl to forgive him. Here we see how light-hearted the girl is, because she says it's okay, that he didn't do it on purpose. Aster makes a promise to the girl that he will marry her. At this time, the girl was very happy. She did not know what the future holds for her. He confirms his intention to marry the girl, as he wants to redeem himself for the rest of his life. The girl was very upset. Remembering those good times when he had just married her and they were very happy together. They danced, smiled sweetly at each other, and all was well with them. Letitia does not understand how he could do this to her, because he swore that he would stay with her forever. She sees him looking sweetly at his mistress and confessing his feelings to her. Naturally, the girl is amazed by her husband's behavior. Aster's mom comes in. She says she didn't know Letitia was still here. She stutters and calls Aster's mom Mother. Aster's mom asks the girl if her son told her about his intentions. The girl replies that she already knows everything, but she also says that she can't have children. Aster's mother replies that she knows this. She adds that it's the woman's own fault if she can't take care of her body, and says that she is very happy that her son is divorcing her. The girl is shocked by these words, but you can see from the woman's face that she is very happy about it. She tells Letitia to go somewhere else and try her best there. She adds that she doesn't know if there is any place that will accept a child like Letitia. We realize that this is a very angry woman because she brought Letitia to tears, a girl who doesn't deserve to be treated like this. Aster's mom turns to her husband and asks him if he has anything to say to the girl to say goodbye. The man touches Letitia's shoulder and addresses her child. He tells Letitia that he knows that she has offered every effort to keep this marriage alive. We understand from the man's words that he is good-natured and what flies light for him as a daughter. He says that it would be wonderful if all the efforts were justified, but no matter how hard the chick tries, he can't keep up with the adult stork. He approached the girl, and then we see the regret in his eyes. The angry woman intervenes and tells Letitia that she has collected all her belongings and left them at the entrance. She adds that as a final favor, she has called a carriage and tells the girl to go wherever she wants. Aster's mother tells the girl that she hopes they will never meet again. The carriage has already arrived, and the girl was surprised to see it in front of her so quickly. She thinks they were just waiting for her to sign the divorce papers and leave. Letitia looks at her things and realizes that it is too little. Since she came here, the girl had a lot of things. Suddenly, the girl is doused with water. Looking up, she sees the girl, who sarcastically says she didn't mean it. The girl asks Letitia if she is okay. According to the girl, we understand that she is Aster's younger sister, and her name is Olivia Winchester. Outwardly, the girl is very beautiful. She has long black hair and beautiful eyes, but spiritually she is not very good because she is arrogant and callous. Olivia laughingly says she didn't think anyone was there and sarcastically asks what to do, since the girl is probably cold. Olivia tells the girl that she took care of her things and calls her sister. We can see the anger and disappointment in Letitia's eyes. She looks at Olivia and says that the dress she is wearing is a memory left to her by her grandmother. With a smile and arrogance, Olivia tells the girl that she doesn't know what she's talking about. She adds everything must be the girl is out of shock. She says she would like to see her sister off, but is a little busy as she needs to clean up the master bedroom for the new guest. Letitia is disappointed as she doesn't understand how her life has come to this. She doesn't understand how her room can be given to that woman. All she can think about is how they can do this. The girl was angry and wanted to sort things out. She wondered if it would end up like this. Two men intervene and tell the girl she can't do that to you here. Letitia kept asking herself how they could do this to her. She started to cry and deny everything that was happening. She fell on her knees and asked herself if in this house, just once, just for a moment, she was treated like family, while all the moments of the tragedy flashed before her eyes. The story moves to Violet's family home. It's getting light outside and their huge, beautiful house is visible. Beautiful woman, appears in the picture and asks this girl if she has divorced Aster. A woman holding a fan in her hand, surprised, asked if they were divorced on their wedding anniversary. The girl looks down at the floor with a sad look and apologizes to the lady. Letitia says that if she had been the head of their family, perhaps she could have lived a good life. The woman accusing the girl says it wasn't enough for her that the investment in her husband's business wasn't returned to her, and that because of her, Graham went to extreme measures. Then we learn that Graham is Letitia's father. The woman says that while Letitia accused her of being her stepmother, Sama decided to get a divorce. The girl has been sitting there all this time, sadly listening to all the accusations against her. Her stepmother is outraged and yells at the girl. She says that if it wasn't for Letitia, Graham would have no reason to die. The girl heard all this and clenched her fists. You can see how much pain has accumulated in her soul. The stepmother tells the girl that she heard that Letitia's sister had died of an illness, and says that it would be better for Letitia to die. Then the girl did not expect to hear all these words, and looked at the floor with pain. After all this, her stepmother threw her out. The girl did not understand what was going on as she had nowhere to go. The stepmother asked the girl if she had no conscience at all and how dare she come here. She yelled again and told the girl to get out now and not to even think about coming back. The protagonist is walking towards the exit, thinking that she didn't even think it would end like this. She is at a loss as to what to do next and where to go, since she has been kicked out of everything. She reflects on the past and remembers her father. She thinks she lived such a stupid life until she lost the only person she's ever really waited for. A picture from the past came to her mind when she was a little girl, holding her father's hand, walking together. She had no strength and no meaning in life and thought that it would be better if she died. She sat on the edge of the river and thought that it would be easier if she jumped into the water. A voice is heard from behind the girl, telling her that she is not alone. Turning around, she sees her husband with his mistress. He says he will not watch her jump into the water. Artie is what his mistress calls him. Very handsome, masculine, tall. He has very beautiful eyes and thick eyebrows. He admires his mistress and tells her to be careful and not to slip. The girl smiles sweetly, looks at him in love, thanks him for his concern, and tells him she'll just talk to her and be right back. Then we notice how beautiful her pink eyes are, her long blue hair, and her plump lips. Her name is Lianka Snoweaser, and she is Aster's mistress. He hugs Lianka tightly, and kissing her forehead, he says, "Let it be as she wishes." Lianka approaches Letitia and asks if she is okay. Letitia watches in bewilderment, while Lianka takes off her scarf and puts it on the girl, and tells her that there is a cold wind today. Lena takes Letitia's hands and is surprised that her hands are so icy. She asks herself what she should do in this situation. Her husband's mistress smiles sweetly and asks Letitia if she would like to walk along the beach and talk. She adds that there is something she needs to tell Mrs. Letitia. Letitia looks at Lianka in bewilderment, pulls her hand out of her grasp and says she hates her. She is surprised and with an innocent look tells Mrs. Letitia that she thinks she would be interested. Lianka grabs Letitia's hand and approaches her, while telling her that she knows what happened before Letitia's father died. The girl looks at Lianka with a frightened look and asks her what she just said. The mistress looks at her and smirks, saying that the girl is finally looking at her. Lianka turns to the girl and suggests that Letitia's late father was very dear to her. Lianka was surprised by Letitia's face because it looks like she saw a ghost. Then Letitia wondered, why is Lianka talking about her father? Then Lianka laughed and tactlessly asks the girl if that is the reason why Artie is beating her up. Lianka tells Letitia to relax and follow her quietly and not to attract Aster's attention, because then she will never hear what Lianka has to say to her. And also smiling adds that Letitia should not get too close to her, as she doesn't like the smell of the stables. Letitia got angry and clutched her dress. She thought about what she knew of the Lianka since she started seducing innocent married men. This woman is horrible, like a snake. Lianka suggests we stop at the edge of the river. She says it's very cold. We see her glaring angrily at Letitia, while Letitia pounces on Lianka and slaps her on the cheek. Letitia from on high says that she hit her for insulting her father. She says that since the pleasantries are over, we can start with what she calls a conversation. Lianka, with a red cheek, starts laughing as if nothing had happened. She says that Letitia is very funny. She asks Mrs. Letitia if she knows what people who resort to extreme measures have to do before they die. Lianka says it's about revising the will. That's how people want to cement their deepest intentions before they die. But I say her father never changed his will. Lianka says that of course he didn't change anything, but her father tried to change his last will to leave her the entire Violet family fortune. She says the question is, what happens if the deceased failed to do so before his death? Lianka asks who benefits most from this, hinting at Letitia's stepmother. Soon Letitia guesses this and says Zania's name, just her stepmother. You can see the surprise and disappointment on the girl's face. A picture of Letitia's father and stepmother appears in front of us. Then we notice that Letitia and her father are smiling sweetly, while Zania looks on with an evil look without a smile. Zania was a penniless aristocrat with distant common roots with the Violet family. She was destitute because her husband had died of illness and she had nowhere to go with her young son. At the same time, Letitia's divorced father took pity on her and decided to remarry. If Letitia's father had reconsidered the will, she would not have been able to hold the position of mistress of the Violet house as she does now. Lianka asks Letitia if this makes her wonder if her father really resorted to extreme measures and if Zania's ex-husband really died of illness. Lianka tells Letitia that if she doesn't believe it, she should see for herself. The town where Zania lived is small, so there are 1 or 2 people who know her and her family. Letitia is surprised at what she has heard and asks Lenka why she is telling her all this. Lenka says that first of all she hates Zania because she has been trying to seduce Aster for a long time, which doesn't suit her at all. Letitia is confused and furious and yells at Lianka and asks what it all means. Lianka says it's all true. She says that Aster didn't even look at her, but she was still clinging to him and once even got him drunk and started taking off her clothes. Lianka adds that the second reason is that she feels very sorry for Letitia while inserting a knife into her heart and throwing it into the water. Even a little bit of Letitia's blood was on her cheek. Lianka looked at the girl with a very angry look and did not see even a drop of regret for what she had done. Throwing the girl into the water, Lianka says that it would be a pity if she died without knowing anything about her father's death. Lianka, smiling as if nothing had happened, says goodbye to the girl and tells her to say hello to her late father. With a frightened look, she thought about the fact that her stupidity had broken her heart, and for all of them, she had sacrificed something precious, her father and her family. The picture of her with her father, when they were smiling and happy, came back to her. She even sacrificed herself. When she thinks she's going to die, a guy grabs her and kisses her. He tells her to stop crying. She doesn't understand what's going on and asks who he is. The guy tells the girl that if she doesn't want to caw like a crow forever, don't open her mouth. Then their lips meet again in a passionate kiss, and he tells her it's okay, telling her she's a good girl. Letitia opens her softly violet eyes, already in a place unfamiliar to her. She is startled and asks herself where she is without realizing what is happening. She thinks she's healed early. A handsome, tall, muscular blonde man appears at the door and smilingly asks if she's awake yet. He tells the girl that it annoyed him to hold her shaking body every night. She sees the guy, guesses who he is, and asks, "Isn't he His Highness Prince Sionian, wonder of the Westeros Empire?" The guy looks at the girl and confirms it. The girl asks the guy why he saved her. The guy proudly tells Letitia that he's the first one to ask all the questions. He asks Letitia if she is the only legitimate child of the Earl of Violet and the daughter-in-law of the Marquis of Winchester. The girl let go of her eyes and looked sadly at the floor. The guy asks then why she was floating down the river with a knife in her chest. The girl grabbed her chest, feeling a little pain. The guy leans over her and says that he was able to stop the bleeding, but he shouldn't overdo it. He leans over a little more and starts kissing the girl's breasts. The girl resists and asks him to stop. Another man enters the room and says to Mr. Sion in surprise not to disturb the girl because the patient has just woken up and needs to rest. We learn that the man's name is Langaro Mahashan and that he is an adjutant of the Zionists. Sion says that the one who's really bothering him now is Langaro. The girl blushes and hides under the blanket. Sion's assistant apologizes to the girl and says that he's not bad at all, just a little bit on his own. Langaro asks Letitia if she was surprised that she was in a strange place when she woke up. He tells the girl that they are on a passenger ship of the Westeros Empire. Westeros is a sacred empire west of Northland where, according to the legends, the gods dwelt until the end. He says that perhaps for this reason the imperial family sometimes gave birth to special children, one of these children being Sion. Those born by the power of God were called souls. The girl wonders why he saved her after all. The doctor says not to worry because they are not going to the western continent. Concerned, the girl asks the doctor what happened. He says that together with Mr. Sion visited Northland and was just looking at the local sites when they saw the lady floating on the river. Mr. Sion pulled the girl out of the water in his arms and cured her. The doctor says she was between life and death for nearly a week. Then the girl calmly asks at Langaro if the soulless heal people in this way. Assistant Zion, smirking, asks the lady in what way exactly. She thinks she is spending time together very closely. He says that small wounds heal quickly, but lady's case was severe. He apologizes to her for embarrassing her. The girl wonders if they have informed her family that she is alive. She is told that they have sent a messenger, but that the funeral has already taken place. The girl, horrified and confused, asks what kind of funeral they are talking about. He tells the girl that unfortunately, after her father's funeral, she was unable to recover and suffered from depression and committed suicide by jumping into the river in front of her stepmother. Those words shocked Letitia, because she wasn't going to kill herself. She didn't understand how she could jump into the river in front of her stepmother, if the stepmother wasn't even there. He says that Mr. Sion said he saw a knife sticking out of her chest. Sion frowns and asks the girl if it was her stepmother who hurt her. The doctor doesn't believe the attempt on the girl's life wasn't the stepmother. He's so sure of it because she says she's the last witness to it. Then Sion gets angry and asks the assistant if he asked him. The girl grabs the wound and says it wasn't Zinnia. She says she was hurt by her husband's mistress, named Lianka Snoweaser. Zion's assistant describes Lianka and says that this girl has rare pink eyes and blue hair. Letitia agrees with him and asks him if he knows the girl. He tells her he doesn't know but thinks his messenger saw her. He said she grieved deeply at her funeral. The girl was angry, as she couldn't understand how Lianka could pretend to be a comma and act as if she wasn't guilty of anything, and she wasn't the one who had made an attempt on Letitia's life. The girl is asked if she is going to go back to her husband. She answers that it will never happen because she thinks that her husband is also involved. But then we notice that she is wearing her wedding ring. She thinks about the fact that she should have died in the river. But then she thinks about why she should die. Because the lovebirds who tried to kill her deserve to die. The girl in her head thinks she will make them pay for their crime no matter what. Sion looks at the girl with admiration and tells her that her look has changed. He added that after her words, he wants to propose to her. The girl does not understand what he is talking about and asks him what proposal he does not mean. He says he will fly and that he will teach her to be perfect together. After these words, the girl's eyes lit up. He says that this revenge will be so cunning that those who wanted to destroy her will themselves desire death. In the picture, we can see the pleasure in his eyes at the words spoken. Sion tells the girl that if she does as he says, she will get the perfect revenge. He says she will get wealth, honor, and even her own taken life. Hearing all this, the girl's face changed. He gives the girl a guarantee that it will all come back to her. At which time the girl is tucked back into bed and with a scowl on her face, and tells him that surely this all has a price to pay. He smiles and says that of course there is a price for everything. That for him the price is the eternal death of Letitia Violet Winchester. The girl's face changes and she doesn't know what she's talking about. He says with a serious face that this is the price he wants, while drawing his hand to the girl. She puts her hand over her heart and asks him if he has anything he wants her to fulfill. He sat down next to her and told her he liked her smarts. He told her that there was a criminal in Northland who had killed someone he cared about. She fell into a stupor for a moment, not knowing what he was going to say next. He said to find him, he needed someone who knew the community and could get the information he needed. He looked at her and said that role would be hers. He draws his hand to her and tells her that he will give her a new position and a new life. He touches her face, telling her that using the power, he will change her face to someone else's. She remembered all the people who had hurt her while he kept telling her that those who had betrayed her wouldn't be able to recognize her. She asks him with shining eyes if he will really change her face and asks him if it is possible. He smiles and tells her that of course it is possible. Otherwise, he will not be the almighty Saul. Letitia asks Sion why he is doing all this for her. He looks at her with a frown as she tells him that she and His Highness are complete strangers to each other. He looks at her sweetly and understands her head, and tells her that they've seen each other before at her wedding, so you can't say they're complete strangers. She says that back then they could only exchange a few words, so she didn't think she could exchange such strong promises. He gently tucks her hair behind her ear, and says that he remembers that back then he gave her one important piece of advice. He told her to run away from Winchester right then. Saying all that, he took her wedding ring off her hand. The events move back in time to the wedding of Letizia and Aster. Then Venice was winter. However, the atmosphere at the wedding is quite different, because Aster can melt any ice. A woman asks someone if they have seen that Saul from Westeros has arrived as a guest point. He is here accompanied by the second crown prince of Nortland, a collection. They say this dream was born in the imperial family for the first time in 300 years. He has the power to defeat the devil and heal people. She says she didn't expect to see him here in person. While Letitia turned around and looked at him. This man is Seonian Saul Meyer Summerhurst. He was sitting on a chair and drinking champagne. The woman says it's all thanks to her, as Queen Anne, the mother of the second crown prince of Calix, is her childhood friend, and so they are honored to receive such a dear guest. She tells the servants to ask the cooks if they can prepare a Western-style meal and hurry up. Then the women's daughter tells her mother that she's at it again. The women in the kitchen say it's so unexpected and ask themselves what else to prepare. They think he'll like what's prepared too. Aster's mom says the bride's father is overstepping his bounds as couldn't he show more attention to his only daughter's wedding? At which time the girl became embarrassed and her husband squinted at her mother. The mother agrees with the son and says that when a woman comes into the house, the son becomes a stranger, and that it is all true. The sister asks the mother why they shouldn't invite a Western visitor from Westeros to give a congratulatory speech. The mother asks the daughter if she means Sola. The woman says that if the speech is given by the soul, she's afraid the guests won't be able to say anything else but whisper. Still, she thinks it's a great idea. Then the girl says she will go talk to him. The mother agrees and tells her daughter to join. Aster's mom tells him to watch Olivia try to exercise influence instead of her sister-in-law, and in doing so turns to Letitia and tells her to watch and learn. Letitia looks very embarrassed as she was humiliated by her mother-in-law. Olivia approaches her mother in a rage, and she asks the girl if Saul agreed to give a congratulatory speech. The girl says that he did not agree and that he said he would only listen to the main celebrants. To the woman it all seems too arrogant, while encouraging her son Aster to go to him personally and talk to him. Aster doesn't understand why he has to do it. He thinks that if Olivia couldn't do it, he certainly can't do it. Letitia, smiling, suggests that her husband do it together. Go and ask him to give us a congratulatory speech. Aster asks the girl if she meant it, and the girl replies that she thought it would be a good thing, as it would enhance the reputation of the House of Winchester. Aster tells his wife that if she wants it that way, so be it, and the girl smiles sweetly and looks at him in agreement. The husband and wife approach them, and one of the brothers asks if these are the protagonists in our feast today. Letitia and the Aster bow to them, first greeting the Grand Soul and His Highness the Prince. Then Letitia rolls greeting the Grand Soul and His Highness the Prince. Zion asked if they had come again to ask to give a congratulatory speech. Zion's brother laughs, insinuating to him that it is contactless. The Zionian laughed and doesn't understand what he said wrong. Aster, with a displeased face, tells them if they hear a congratulatory speech from the great Solo, all the hardships hanging over them will disappear. Sion asks him if he meant it. She turns to the newlyweds and says that he didn't even remember their names, which shocked Aster and Letitia. He asks if they are sure that his speech will bring them luck. Sion says that he has no luck for their family and tells them to go back to the house. While Zion was sitting contented, Aster got angry and told them he thought they had come to the wrong place. He turns around and says he made a mistake. At the same time, Letitia calls him back. She touches his hand and he looks at her angrily and tells her he's already told her everything and turns around and walks away, leaving his wife alone. The girl got frustrated and thought about how she couldn't even think she could do what Olivia didn't. Sion smilingly asks his brother if the Aster left his wife. Only because he lost his temper, his brother stops him and insinuates that it's not right. Letitia bows to them and apologizes, and adds that they are already honored to have them as a guest. She apologizes for putting them in the uncomfortable position of asking them to make a congratulatory speech. Zion's brother assures the girl that she shouldn't apologize on such a momentous day, because it's not her fault at all. She was about to leave, but at the same second, Sion said that he had congratulatory wishes for her. He told the girl to run. The girl fell in a stupor as she didn't understand why he said that. She asked the guy what he didn't mean and why she should run away. Sion said that, literally speaking, she should run away from this fool because he is not worthy of this beauty. Sion, looking in his trace, tells the girl that with this rat she will never be happy. At that time, the girl did not give importance to these words and bowed to them and withdrew. Sion then thought that she was a real fool for not taking his advice. For he realized even then that she would only suffer in this marriage, and there would be no happiness for her. Story goes back to the bedship. He also removes the girl's wedding ring from her finger with his teeth and tells her that she then does not heed his advice. He thinks out loud that she must have loved that fool so much she'd do anything for him, and that's how he repaid her for her love. He throws the ring on the floor and it shatters. He says it's the same as pouring water into a bottomless pot. It will never be filled, just as Aster's heart will never be filled with Letitia's love. The girl, looking at Sion, asked him if he can really carry out her revenge. He, smiling sweetly, answers the girl that everything will be so. Then the girl agrees with him and accepts his proposal, in her eyes. You can see anger and desire to avenge her honor, and not mutual love. Zion tells the girl that the deal is done. Now she has to kiss his shoe. The guy pulls his foot toward the girl and she doesn't know what's going on. He looks at her as if he doesn't understand what she doesn't understand. At this point, Sion's assistant intervenes in their conversation, and he begins to explain to the girl that in their holy empire of Westeros, it is customary to kiss the feet of members of the imperial family as a sign of an oath of unwavering loyalty. He tells the girl that it means submitting and dedicating your life to another person. At this point, the girl listened to all these explanations and then told them that she had heard about it before. Sion's assistant explains to her further that the founders of the imperial dynasty of Westeros were demigods, and he used his sacred power to get a special oath from his subjects, and it has been a tradition of their dynasty ever since. Zion tells the girl that after she becomes only his, she can no longer be. While the guy explains to the girl, she sits quietly and listens to him, agreeing with him. Sion says this is good news because the foolish woman who put up with all the abuse until she was humiliated and killed by her husband's mistress, a foolish woman who gave all her possessions to a cheating husband. He says it's a perfect opportunity to clear his reputation and prove to everyone that their accusation that she's an ungrateful daughter who ruined her father is slander. Letitia bows down and kisses Sion's shoe. The girl looks at him with eyes full of hope and asks him to keep his promise and fulfill her revenge. Sion touches Letitia Violet's face and lifts her head up. He calls the girl Letitia Violet Winchester, at which point the girl notices that something magical has appeared on his arm. He puts his hand on the girl's head and tells her that from now until the end of her days, she will serve only him and will obey only his orders. Seeing the girl's trembling body, Sion, smiling, asked if she was worried. The girl, with her eyes closed, told him that she was a little worried, but she wasn't afraid that something would be wrong with her face. She starts to say something else, but Sion interrupts her. He asks if she is worried about what is coming. The girl doubts that she will be able to fulfill what His Majesty commands. He looks at him seriously and tells her to get rid of these thoughts while he touches his finger to her lips. Sion says that unlike every rat who has gotten too much, the pretty girl is just really scared. At this point, he pulls the girl to him and leans over her a little and kisses her. He tells the girl that even if she fails, he'll support her to the end. He says he'll never say he doesn't trust her, while his hand plays sweetly with her hair. Sion again towers over the girl and tells her not to underestimate herself. She agrees with him. He holds out his hand to her and tells her that now Laetitia Violette is gone forever, and he has a new girl standing in front of him. He tells her that today she is Countess Kant, Anna Rosa Victoire. The girl has become even cuter than she was. She has changed almost everything down to the color of her hair, but only her beautiful diamond eyes remain. Also, the guy says that now the girl will live the life of the countess she has become. The girl admires herself in the mirror while Sion tells her that even her own parents wouldn't recognize her like this. She looks amazed at her appearance, as if it suits her better, this new look. She thinks that her hair color is the same black as Aster's. You can see from her face that she is still suffering from unrequited love. She thinks that her facial features have become sharper, and her eyes are more pronounced and bright. She can't believe he's changed her so much just by touching her face. Sion says that in his opinion, she looks good, and asks his assistant if he thinks so too. His assistant says that the girl looks like the beauty from a famous painting, while smiling and admiring her appearance. Sion tells his assistant to go and finish the job. The assistant asks the girl to follow him. Sion turns away and is about to leave the room, but the girl stops him and thanks him for everything he has done for her. Sion says there is no need for gratitude. She looks at him with her big, beautiful eyes, but is puzzled. Sion says he only needs her usefulness. He smilingly tells the girl to try not to betray him, turning to her Laetitia. The action shifts to the room to prepare the Laetitia. Sion's assistant. Tell the girl that he didn't know they were acquainted with His Highness Sionian. While he combs her hair, the girl informs him that they were not too close. His Highness's aide tells the girl that now that they are in the same boat with Zion, surely they can't be called such already strangers. He puts a beautiful necklace on the girl and offers to stay with her. After he has already finished with her preparations, he tells her that he will now tell her what she must do. He says that from now on, the lady is a rising star in the society of the County of Canth, and she will live as Countess Canth, Anna Rosa Victoire. He says that she will be receiving a proper education in Canton County for the next year. The girl's eyes lit up when she heard this and asked the guy if she was going to Kant County. He said of course she was, because there she would have to learn firsthand the culture, accent, and attitudes of the sorority. He begins to explain to the girl that the County of Canth is a country in which any woman can assume the position of countess or duchess if she has enough ability. He says that it is quite contrary to the Northland custom, where women are not free to pass on titles by inheritance. The girl said that although she was the only legitimate heir of the family, she could not inherit the title. At this point, she reflected that she was very pleased to become part of the county she had always envied. But the girl realizes that she has never been to Kant County, nor has she ever left Northland. Her mentor says that Kant is the official language of the continent. He asks the girl if she speaks the language at this level. The girl said she didn't know if she would make it because Kant County has its own accent. At this point, the aide said not to worry about it because even though a year is a short time, they would do their best to support her so that no one would have any doubts. At this point, the girl felt sad and thought that a different personality, a changed appearance, and strong support was too much, and no one had ever done that for her. In her mind, she thought she was paying His Highness for his support and for his kindnesses. At this point, she felt a pain in her chest. Turns out it was bothering her early again. The assistant asked what happened and wondered if it was bleeding again early. The girl thinks it's because she's been in a hot bath for a long time and her blood circulation has accelerated. His Highness's assistant suggests that the girl should go to the scion just in case, so that he himself can check what is going on with the girl, and her early on will not cause any problems later on. The girl says there's no need for that, as she says she's fine. The aide says you shouldn't be so careless about your well-being and your health. Langoro turns to the girl and says that even though Zion was born with a tendency to be a nuisance, once the girl gets to know him, she will realize how easy and pleasant he is. The girl doesn't understand what he means and asks him about it. The aide says that this means she doesn't need to try to please or please him since there is no need. He says that the only thing His Highness the Zionian cares about is her favor. He adds that Zion doesn't treat people based on personal feelings, so he doesn't worry about what others think. At this point, the girl opened her eyes interestedly and asked how light he was. The girl went to the door of his chambers, and knocked on it with a little jam. His Highness the Zionian opened the door and asked the girl what had happened. For a second, the girl was lost because he was dazzlingly handsome, but then informed him that her early bleeding was back. Letitia said she didn't want to disturb His Majesty, but Mr. Langoro said to come so His Majesty could examine her wound to make sure she was all right. Zion invited the girl into his chambers, laid her on the bed, and began to examine her. The girl painfully asked Zion why it was taking so long to heal. Zion tells the girl that there was something else on her leg. He humorously tells the girl that it is definitely not from lack and his ability. Letitia stood up a little and thanked His Highness for his help, and told him that she felt better. He stroked her head, and said that it was the owner's duty to take care of his horse. Not a very nice phrase, but the girl liked it because she thought about the fact that even if it was like stroking a dog's head, it had been so long since anyone had pet her like that. For a few seconds, a picture from her past came back to her as her husband stroked her and looked at her tenderly. At that moment, Zion asked the girl if she still had any regrets from her past life. Hearing this, the girl's eyes lit up, and she said that she left that life not because she wanted to, but because they stole and trampled everything in her life. Sitting next to the girl's bed, he rests his head in his hand and asked her how she got involved in all this in the first place, because she doesn't seem like the kind of person who would take all the abuse. The girl intertwined her hands between them and told him that she thought she had put up with it because she thought it was easy, so easy that she thought she could handle it without even realizing that it was ruining her. He was looking at her and suddenly told her he had a question. He touched his finger to the girl's hand and asked her, "Why are women in Northland so attached to their husbands?" He said he had heard that in ancient times there was a custom that if a husband died first, his wife would be buried alive with him. The girl looked at him and told him that it wasn't so bad now, but it was still a pretty conservative country, and looked into the void. Zion asks the girl, so conservative is the country that her husband with honor can be an adulterer. The girl as if in pain, looking and thinking about all this. Letizia says that men's extramarital affairs, although not honored, are not considered so shameful. You can guess by the look in her eyes how much pain she has suffered, and how hard it is for her to talk about it. The girl says that as long as it does not compromise the position of the spouse or the line of succession, it is accepted, and recalls seeing her husband with his mistress in his arms. Zion asks, what about the woman? The girl doesn't know what he's talking about and asks him what he means. The guy asks, what happens if the spouse is unfaithful, and looks at her with a tempting look. Zion sits attentively and listens to the girl while she explains to him that in Northland, if a married woman commits adultery, she is immediately sent to her parents' home, and instead of dividing the property, she will have to pay a large sum of compensation to her husband and his family. The girl says that in addition, children born to lovers may be disinherited. Zion, turning around, says that it seems the inflated standards in Northland are only for women. At this point, Letitia asks His Highness why he is asking about this. Sion says that because among other things he wants to do it. Probably under this, he hints at love with her. At which point he descends over her and looks her straight in the eye while confusing the girl. The girl was confused, and a question sounded in her head, if now she didn't hear it. He looks at her mesmerized and tells her that she was kicked out before she committed adultery, while starting to touch her face and neck, and the girl just kept quiet. He says she won't have to pay compensation because she's already dead, as everyone thinks. He moved even closer to her and looked her straight in the eyes. He says she has no children to disinherit, and started kissing her neck. He says that since he's having an affair, it would be fun to do it with someone worse than her ex-husband. He started hugging her and kissing her body, while inhaling her scent. He says this is not progress but regression, while lifting her up and holding her tightly in his arms. Sion says that in that sense, doesn't think he has any rivals and asks the girl how she thinks. Droplets of tears fell on Sion's face, for at that moment Letitia started crying. Her face was all in tears. She started crying because she thought her usefulness meant it. She thought about how she was used to being treated like a tool. She thinks she was a cash cow and a puppet in the hands of the Winchesters, and to Astor, she was a wife of nothing. Letitia thought about the fact that now she was born again and promised not to make the same mistakes. When their hands intertwined together and Sion began to kiss her, the girl thought about the fact that after all that one chance had given her the same fate. She couldn't believe it, because she wanted a new life, a different life from the one she had lived before. She didn't want to live like that again. She was sick of suffering, of torturing herself and her body. At that moment, the girl pushed Sion away and apologized to him and said she had better go back to her room. She turned around and left the room so quickly that she didn't even notice Mr. Langaro. Langaro did not understand what was going on, for he saw tears on the girl's face, and he did not want her to suffer. He quickly entered Mr. Sion's room wondering many questions. He asked Sion if he had to bully the poor girl like that, for it was the poor girl who couldn't be seen, and asked Sion to be gentler with her and not to upset her, for she didn't deserve it. Sion replied to Lagar that it was she who ran away and did not listen to him because he did not mean it, and she did not understand the essence of the whole conversation. Langar asks Sion who makes the suggestion of pretending to be lovers. He says that of course there will be a misunderstanding. He's sure it should have been different, and that Sion chose the wrong words. At this point, Sion became indignant, and said that it was all too noisy for him. He ordered Langar Raz came to sort out the clothes. At this point, Langar asked Sion if he had forgotten that Langar was with the son of the Prime Minister of Westeros. Sion interrupted anger, and said that if he had not forgotten who is Sion to shut up now, agreed with him, and said that he is not just a prince, but also a soul. Hanger tidies up Zion's clothes, and tells him that if he really cares about Letitia's condition, why doesn't he go to her and clear up the misunderstanding himself? He says that then Zion's plan won't be disturbed. At this time, Letitia is already asleep in her bed, but apparently she has nightmares. In her nightmare, Lianka, her husband's mistress, is calling her to go somewhere. Apparently Letitia is running away from her in her dream. Lianka tells her that it is pointless to run, implying that she will not succeed. The girl runs after Letitia with a ball in her hand. She asks the girl if she wants to feel easy. Lianka chased after Letitia and suddenly grabbed her leg and started dragging her along. She asked Letitia if that was all she could do. The girl cried hearing Lianka ask how a tumor like her got into their house. She said if she were gone, everything would be fine. If she were only dead, she said it would be better for everyone. It was as if she was being chased by many hands and could not escape. She screamed for help, and then someone grabbed her arm, and it was Astor. She asked him to help, but he said the name Letitia Violet and let go of her arm. Astor threw the girl to his mistress and told her that no one would help her, and she was even more frightened. Her eyes were bleeding. Letitia woke up with a pain in her heart. Her heart felt like it was pounding. She left the room, then went and got a bottle of wine, saying she couldn't stand it in her right mind, and started drinking straight from the bottle. Sion was behind her and asked her what she was doing. The girl was startled by the surprise and started coughing. He looked at the girl and said that she should not drink because she had a wound that had not yet healed. The girl replies that the pain in her chest was so bad that she could not even sleep. Sionian tells Letitia that if the pain was so great, she should have gone to him instead of drinking wine with a wound on her heart. He tells the girl that she should think about why there are no painkillers on this ship. The girl at first didn't understand what he meant, and at that moment she fainted, and her dress was all bloody. As her early started to bleed again, he caught her before she fell to the floor. Sion then said that this is what happens when you drink alcohol with a wound. He brought his hand close to the girl's wound, and again, with his magic, healed the girl. The girl woke up and told him that he was probably upset because of her fault, and thanked him for his help. He looked at her coldly and told her that upset was not the right word. He motioned for her to sit down next to the comma while she stood in a stupor. He told the girl that they had unfinished business. Yo. The girl crouched down next to him while he asked her so frothy that she couldn't move. Apparently he said it with humor, but the girl didn't understand, and apologized to him, clenching her dress in her fists. Sion, at the sight of it all, said that was the reason he couldn't joke. The girl looked at him innocently, not knowing what he was talking about. She realized in that moment that she didn't mean it in the room. He starts telling the girl that the reason he suggested that she have an affair is because it is one of the means of achieving her revenge. He says that even if she returns after a year of training in Kant, is a country where acting alone is quite difficult. He says there may come a point when they have to use authority. He says if he was just planning to use her as a means to achieve his own desires, he wouldn't have offered her a deal in the first place. At that moment, the girl was speechless. But in her mind, she thought that she was embarrassed in front of him because she had thought wrong. She thought that she had made a mistake when she thought that a man like Sion would want her. Letitia told Sion that she had misinterpreted His Highness's intention without listening to him. Plus, she had shown excessive emotionality, and asks him how she could apologize to him. The girl looked down at the floor while Sion looked directly at her. He says that if you think about it well, he has already made his share of apologies. However, he has not received an apology for her words. The girl at that moment, feeling very awkward and guilty, asked the guy what she could do to make him forgive her. He looked at her without taking his eyes off her, but he already had a plan of action in his head. He looks directly at the girl and tells her that in order for him to forgive her, she needs to kiss the lips that said her wishes at the wedding, pointing to his lips. He says that after that, he will accept the girl's apology. The girl blushed and felt very awkward, but Sion told her that the girl had said she intended to do everything for him, and asked her if they were empty words. The girl decides to stand up and walk towards him, but in her mind, she thought it was a test. She thought it was to see if she could handle being his mistress. She thought it wasn't real, and with a frown she made up her mind. She moved closer to him and told him if His Highness could close his eyes. He put his hands on her waist and she moved closer still to him. Yo. At that moment he looked into her eyes and said that he was acting like a virgin. The girl blushed and smiled a little. She apologized and kissed his neck and asked herself if she should kiss him here. Then she thought she should probably go higher, and then a little more. When their lips came closer, he asked the girl if she was doing it on purpose, while holding her waist with one hand and holding her arm with the other. The girl became embarrassed and apologized, because she had not done anything like this for a long time, and asked if she could try again. He was looking at her with a frown at that moment. He said that he would consider that he had received his apology and directed her to his room. At that moment, the girl thought that she was probably right when she thought that he was testing her. But in her eyes, you could see a little sadness. Letitia said goodnight to Sion, and turning her back on His Highness went to her room, while Sion remained still as if he were bewitched. Sion felt very hot and didn't understand what was wrong. He undressed his shirt a little and asked himself why everything was burning inside him. When Sion was alone with himself, a Langaro burst in and apologized for the unexpected intrusion. But he had something important to tell, for he had received word from the palace. The boy says that later he will file a petition for moral damages that he suffered while working for his lord. He asks that the lord approve this petition. Sion looks at him and gets a little nervous. He immediately tells his subject to get out. It was morning, and Letitia was awakened by some sounds. She heard someone asking the other what he would do if he took charge of everything like this. The girl did not understand what was going on, and so she went out of her room. Leave the room. She asked herself why it was so loud outside. Suddenly she saw Logan talking to some man. He noticed the girl and turned to her. He asked the girl if she had a good night's sleep. The girl told him she was fine thanks to him. When the girl saw that they had stopped standing in the harbor, she asked the langar if there was anything wrong with the ship. From her look, we could tell that she was a little worried. Letitia looked at them and saw that they were thinking about something. The man who was next to Longar apologized to the lady and politely said that all this was nothing and she should not worry. Just wait a little and everything will be fine. They are doing everything for that. Langaro supported the man and said that it was nothing, just the engine was out of order. The girl asked the men in surprise how long it would take to fix the engine. At that moment, they thought about it and answered the girl that they could do it in an hour or two. Langaro told the girl that she must be tired of being in her cabin all the time. The girl told him that she was not. But the man suggested that they go down to the port and take a walk because the weather was very nice outside. He told the girl that when they left the port, she would not be able to return to Northland for a year. He told the girl that maybe she wanted to say goodbye to this place. Letitia smiled, but she had a sad look on her face. She thought about the fact that she had no one to say goodbye to. They told her to leave the past behind and be reborn. That would save her. Langaro asked the girl to come with him, because there were some dresses on board that she would like to see. He said he was sure they would look good on her, and her eyes lit up, but she still looked sad. He asked the girl to wait for him a little while because now he will bring her a dress. The girl looked in the mirror at herself, and in her head was the thought that she just could not believe that this is her face, although it seemed to her that her appearance could not be called also unattractive. E.O. The girl seemed to want to say something else in her head, but then she changed her mind and said that she didn't think so. At that moment, Langar came into the room and asked the girl what she was thinking about. The girl turned to him and was silent for a second. The girl replied to Langaro that she thought about the fact that, with all due respect, Zion is amazing. Langaro replied to the girl that it is true. He says that his lich is the greatest gift of their empire. Yo. The girl laughed a little and asked Langar if Sion had not accidentally changed his appearance with the help of the holy power. Langar began to laugh and asked the girl how she could think of such a thing. He told the girl that he did not even know how long he had not laughed so much. Langar, laughing, tells the girl that unfortunately Mr. Zion has had that face since birth. The girl laughs and says she thought so too. They laugh a little more, and then Langar tells the girl that enough fun and it's time to change the girl's outfit. The girl was dressed in a beautiful snow-white dress with black details that emphasized even more the beauty of her hair, a large hat with flowers that emphasized even more her tenderness and attractiveness. This gentle image emphasized even more the beauty of her eyes. Langaro, upon seeing the girl, began to admire her beauty and complimented her that she was very beautiful in this image. The girl thanked Mr. Langaro for his compliment. The girl thanked Mr. Langaro for his compliment and replied that he was just stating the obvious. He asked the girl if she was familiar with the geography of the port. The girl smilingly told him that of course she was familiar with it. After all, she was from here. The girl remembered her childhood. While telling Langar about the port, she told him that the port was within walking distance of her home, so she was often with her father when he traveled for business. Langar interrupts the girl and says that he has heard earlier that accidents are increasing here because of the gangs. He tells the girl that for this case, he will provide her with an escort to make sure that she will be okay. The girl is introduced to someone named Alexa Wolf. She is a cute girl with pink short hair and with a beautiful appearance. This girl is also known as the fastest sword in Westeros. At that moment, Letitia felt a little awkward because she thought it was a guy. However, she seems nice. Letitia Violet Winchester introduces herself and tells the girl it's a pleasure to meet her and draws her hand to Alexa's. At that moment, Langaro interrupts the girl and says it's not right, because from now on her name is Ana Rosa Victoire. Sweet girl. Alexa kissed Ana Rosa's hand and told the girl that she was very happy to meet her and called her Countess Victoire. The girl says she is very much looking forward to their cooperation. The main character for the first time saw the ship on which they are sailing. She was surprised at how big and beautiful this ship is. According to her, this ship is just wonderful. On it you can see after a long time on how happy she is. Alexa tells the girl that this ship is the pride of Westeros, the Platinum Celeste. The protagonist surprised at how beautiful a name it is for a ship. Then, from behind the girl hears a voice. She recognizes it immediately. She says that it's stupid to paint the size, and that she likes free goals or something like that. In the girl's head, she thought that this voice was too familiar to her. The main character looks back over her shoulder and sees that it's Olivia and Clarissa. She immediately changes her face, and Alexa doesn't understand what's going on. Olivia and Clarice are talking, and one of them says that in her opinion all boats are the same. She tells Olivia that compared to other simple troughs, their boat is the most immaculate and exquisite, and asks for Olivia's confirmation. At that moment, the protagonist was watching them and thinking about the fact that the Aster ship is anchored nearby and they can't even find it. She thought that these two are real idiots. All the while, Alexa is looking back and doesn't understand what's going on with the girl. Olivia tells her mom that business is going well and it's time to change the boat. She says this boat is too small. She asks her mother if they shouldn't own a ship worthy of bearing the name of the Marquis of Winchester. After a long discussion, Clarissa agrees with her daughter. She says that after all, her son should have received the insurance money in case of his wife's death. Upon hearing these words, Letitia's face changed, and you could see the anger and hatred that had accumulated against her past family. Letitia listens as her ex-husband's sister and mom discusses her. Olivia says that Letitia Violet remains useless both in life and after death, while smiling. Letitia hears all this and turns to them. Clarissa tells her daughter that Aster is too good, because even after the death of this idiot hinting she, Letitia, refuses to get the insurance money because she is out of her mind in her demise. A very unexpected turn of events. Olivia tells her mother that Zania did a great job. Olivia says that Zania is not good with money and that it is a great loss. At this point, Letitia looks like she's going to go straight to them and tell them everything to their faces. Clarice asks her daughter if she has talked to Lianka. Olivia answers her mother that of course she has talked to Lianka, and that their conversation has been very helpful. She says that Lianka is known to have survived a terrible fire alone, and as it happens, she's the sole heir to the Snoweiser family. Olivier, I'm sure at Aster and Lianka's wedding, she'll come with a big dowry. Clarissa is very happy about these events, and tells her daughter that she can't wait for this moment. She acts as if she has no honor, conscience, and dignity, because she rejoices in the misfortune of others. She says that in her opinion this girl will show more diligence than to be cured. On hearing this, Letitia's face changed from rage and hatred, and in her mind she thought that they were insensitive, because only a little time had passed since her death, and they were already talking like that. Olivia was surprised to see such a beautiful girl, and told her that, judging by her appearance, she came from abroad. Olivia smiled as if she were a nice girl, and asked the girl what continent she was from, while bowing a little to her. Olivia said she was very pleased to see foreign visitors here in a long time. The girl just looked at her and didn't say anything. Olivia saw that the girl was silent and got a little angry, and asked the girl if she didn't speak the language of Northland. She asked her if she knew the official language of the continent. The main character at that moment thought that she should say something, and her voice is not obeyed. Seeing her silence, Alexa, and realizing that something is wrong with the girl, decided to save her and said that the walks in foreign ports, very interesting, but they have to go, yo. She said she would take Mistress to the meeting place. That way, she got her mistress out of an awkward situation. The girls walked out of there looking back at Olivia and her mother unhappy. Already in the cafe, Alexa and Letizia were talking to each other, and Alexa says that it was very close. It seems to her that they were acquaintances of Letizia's. The girl confirms this, and tells Alexa that those women are her mother-in-law and sister-in-law. The girl interrupts Letitia and tells her that maybe she meant to say ex-mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Letitia says that's right, and thanks Alexa for getting her out of there. Alexa says it's not worth it, because it's all for Mr. Zion. A cafeteria worker comes up to them and brings them drinks and sandwiches. Alexa tells Letitia to eat a little. She adds that weight control is also very important for her new image, comma. In certain cases, it even goes so far as to make people unrecognizable. The girl smiled sweetly and told Alexa that she remembered everything. Suddenly, the door opens and Aster, Letitia's ex-husband, enters. He starts to say that he didn't expect this man to hide from him in such a place. Letitia thought he was talking to her and started to panic. Alexa immediately noticed that something was wrong with the girl and asked her what was wrong. Letitia said it was her ex-husband, but Alexa immediately began to calm her down and told her that this gentleman would never recognize her. She says the more she worries, the more attention and suspicion she'll arouse. When Letitia wanted to say something else, another voice was heard. apologizing to Aster for making him run around, saying that he missed the local food. It turns out to be Aster's best friend named Viscount Vandel Bryson. Letitia immediately calmed down and recognized this man as Aster's best friend who had come to their wedding. The girl was immediately glad that they did not recognize her, and she was safe. The Viscount tells Aster that he knows him very well, and that he ordered everything as usual. Yo, Alexa asks Letitia if she's calmed down. The girl replies that she feels much better. Alexa tells the girl that if she is feeling better, they can slowly get up and leave the place. When the girls got up and were about to leave, there was a sudden shouting at the table where Aster and his friend were sitting. Turns out Aster's friend yelled at him and asked him if he meant it. He asks Aster how he can talk about his dead wife like that. Aster tells his friend that this woman would have nowhere to go after the divorce, and since she could not have children, the likelihood of remarriage was very low. At this point, his friend asks him how could he decide to divorce her, knowing the desperate situation she would be in. Aster turns to his friend and says he's not a philanthropist. Aster says that Letizia also thought only of herself. He says that she realized that he and Lianka were serious, but did not give up on her. He notes that his ex-wife was desperately humiliated, hoping that he would return to her. He says that Letitia deliberately jumped into the river to make him feel guilty. All this time, Letitia has been listening to everything they say. Aster says he doesn't even want the insurance money for fear something will bring him bad luck. He says that for him and Lianka's future, he doesn't need the blood money. Letitia started crying when she heard them talking. Alexa saw that the girl felt bad, but at that moment Letizia thought that the Aster had refused the money because of guilt, but it turned out that the Aster had betrayed her to the very end. Her ex-husband kept telling his friend that if life is easily ended by a regular divorce, it's over. So for him to pray for her soul is a waste of time. Dear friends, on this note, we will end the story, but if you want to see the next part, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and do not forget to put a like under this video. When it gets 40,000 views or 5,000 likes, I will make the next part for you. See you soon.